I'm Jacob Rigger. I'm an RV technician and inspector, and in today's video, I'm going to be inspecting this fifth wheel roof to show you what you should be looking for when inspecting the caulking and other fixtures on the roof and the slide outs of an RV. This caulking is all good. It's dirty, but there's no real cracks in the caulking. A common problem area you want to look at is the corners here. And in fact, you can see this caulking is not even stuck. This caulking is peeling away and needs to be pulled off and resealed to make sure we don't have water entry here. So this is something you should document and note in your inspection report. We also want to look between this gutter rail and the roof membrane here. We just found a crack in the roof membrane. That's a hole. I just found 4 cracks along the edge here. These are definitely a problem and need to be resealed. So you should photograph that and put it in your inspection report. So it's important to check all along the edges. You also want to inspect just all the open surfaces, because sometimes if a tree branch falls, it can make a little hole in the middle of the roof membrane that's hard to spot. So you got to have a lot of attention to detail to spot little holes that can result in large patches of the roof rotting. Now that I found those micro cracks on the edge, I'm going to go and inspect just the edge of the roof all the way around and see what condition it's in. When you're on a roof, you want to be very careful because it's easy to fall. You want to stay back from the edge and not be somewhere where one wrong step can make you fall off. Here's another one, more fractures. This appears to be the membrane is just splitting. This could be hail damage, because when there's hail, the membrane is going to be really cold, and an impact like that could actually split the membrane. Here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And again, we're looking at the corners to make sure all the caulking here is clean and tight and no gaps. This actually looks like it's all holding together pretty well. Here's another split. So this is not a crack. This is a little bit of sealant that was up on top of the roof. That's not a problem. Here's another split right here. One small hole like that can result in a lot of water damage. Next, I'm going to go back around the roof and I'm going to look at all the other fixtures on top. So we've already looked at this grab bar, this vent. There's a little bump in the sealant right here. So I want to look from this angle very carefully and make sure that this bump in the sealant is not a hole. It's like it got pushed, but I don't see a crack there that would result in a leak. So that's good. There is no caulking sealing an air conditioner. Underneath the air conditioner is a big foam rubber gasket that's compressed. So there's no caulking to look at here. So we're going to look at this vent fixture. We're going to make sure that the vent itself is not broken. I see some minor little holes right here, but they don't appear to go through the caulking. So I don't think this is causing a leak. I'm pulling it back a little bit to see, is there a crack that goes through, or is it just kind of a surface irregularity? And this appears to be an irregularity. Next, let's look at the solar panel mounts. This appears to have good caulking all the way around it. Same up here. Now, you'll notice how much caulking is around here, but over here, we've got very little caulking. I would actually document this one because I think it would benefit from being cleaned and having more sealant added so that it looks more like this. So this is our solar panel cable entry port. It looks like there was a hole cracked in this plastic, and the hole was covered over with this Eternabond tape. And it looks like there's a tiny little crack starting to form right here on the Eternabond tape. I would recommend sealant being applied to this. So again, you want to photograph this and document it. We've got solar panel connector shoes over here, brackets over there. Those look good. So now we've got the plumbing vents here. We want to make sure that the vent itself is not cracked or falling off. This screw hole is missing caulking. You can see how this screw hole still has caulking to keep water out, but this, you should document this as needing more caulking. And this is actually cracked, if you see that micro crack right here. So this cap should be replaced. Definitely document that in your report. Now when we look at this vent, I'm actually seeing a micro crack right here. When I push down on the membrane, you can see it's a pretty substantive crack. This flange is actually peeling up from the roof and probably needs to be screwed back down. So these screws need to be removed, the flange pushed down, screwed down, and this all cleaned and resealed. This is definitely an issue. Over here, this was a bubble that formed whenever they put the sealant on, and the bubble popped, and now we've got a hole clean underneath. Now, when this flange of the skylight is installed, there's actually a butyl putty tape put under the flange, between the flange and the roof, and then this caulking is a secondary sealant that's put down over top. So this hole doesn't necessarily mean that the primary seal, the butyl tape underneath this, is leaking, but it definitely needs to be resealed to avoid any leaks. And you can see there's another bubble starting to form over here. So if I pull this back a little bit, we can see there's a pretty substantive gap where water has been going underneath the secondary seal. All right, when you see this, you got to take a close look and make sure that this is not a crack. Sometimes these skylights will develop fractures in them, but this is just sealant that was sloppily put on. So this is all good. But when we get over here, you can see this screw is starting to back out. This screw should be reinstalled and then the caulking touched up here. The good news is when I look through the clear plastic underneath, I don't see any signs of water having come in past the sealant. So I think everything is still watertight. Now we've got this vent. There's some slight surface cracking here, but I don't think this is a compromised seal yet. Now we've got this antenna. And again, all around the edge, we've got these little micro cracks, but I don't think that this seal has given up yet. Another really important area to inspect is the lap sealant at the front cap and the rear. So let's take a look at the front. There's screws here and here and here. Sometimes those screws will back out, so you want to look for that. Here's a bubble that formed that has not yet popped. But if that pops, it could allow water going underneath. Here's a bubble that did pop. Water has gotten underneath the bubble, so I would recommend this be cleaned and resealed. Another thing that's important to inspect when you're up here is these lights on the front. If this light is missing or there's a problem with the rubber gasket, you can have water going in. Sometimes on new RVs, these lights are just missing. All right, let's go back and take a look at the rear cap. So everything across here looks good on the rear cap. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is the slide outs. Now on slide out roofs, you want to be careful because they often use a thinner decking, like sometimes just 1/4 inch thick plywood. And if you step in the wrong place, it can be cracking things. So I tend to only step on the edges here. They waterproof it with Eternabond tape. That's normal from the factory. And we want to look and see if there's any screws poking through or tape peeling up. So here you can actually see the Eternabond is not actually stuck to the roof right here, which means that if it peels back here too far, then it'll start to leak. So I would actually document this and recommend another piece of tape be put down here to waterproof this. Another thing to watch for is right here where the Eternabond comes over the edge. You can see how the Eternabond tape has actually been cut through, even though it goes around the corner, and it's not even adhering here, which means water can go completely under there and get back to this flange. But we also want to come back here and inspect all along here to see if there's any gaps where water might be coming in. Okay, now this is a problem. This is a water leak. This is a gap where water can get in behind these seals. And in fact, these two rubber seals should be super glued together to keep them tight around the edge. They should be tight like this. The fact that they're flopping like this is going to allow for more water to get in. But water can go straight behind this whole seal assembly in that gap. That has to be sealed up. This is a big issue. It must be documented in your report. In fact, this whole slide seal, you can see the caulking is stuck to the fiberglass and it's not at all stuck to the seal. The whole seal can move in and out. The caulking should be stuck to this hard plastic edge. The reason why this is open is the seal has slid over. The seal should be right here. And in fact, this screw should be going through this hard plastic channel, pinning the seal in place so it cannot move left and right. So that needs to be reinstalled. This caulking needs to be scraped and redone. Now, this is a good example of where the Eternabond tape bubbling up is going to allow water to go completely underneath it. The Eternabond tape is of no use right here because the water can go under and get to this flange. That doesn't mean it's leaking, but it does mean that we should cut out this piece of Eternabond tape, clean, and put a new piece down. Same thing here. This bubble will allow water to run straight underneath. You can see how much junk and dirt has been washing up underneath because of water going in this crack. Same thing on here, but coming from the other side, water can come in and then travel this way to this joint. So we've got another issue here where the Eternabond tape is worn through and water can now get around it into those seams. So this needs to be repaired. Another thing I've learned out of necessity is if you go to put your feet on a slide out roof, don't put your full weight on it yet. Test it and make sure that you have a solid surface before getting onto a slide out. Because if there's wood rot and you smash through the decking, then you've got a bigger problem. The same thing here. Eternabond is cut through this corner. The T-molding is sticking out, so it's no longer waterproofing that joint. That's a potential water leak, so we've got to document that. Also, the slide-out seals, they're not adhered to each other, so I would document that. Caulking is not adhered to this bulb seal anymore. Document that. This bulb seal, just like on the other side, has slid out of place. It needs to be all the way over here and screwed in place. Notice how small this gap is right here. There's like very little tolerance here compared to over here. There's a lot more distance between this surface right here and the wall. So this slide out is sitting slightly forward. It's actually out of center in the opening in the wall of the RV by about 1/2 of an inch. A slide out being out of center can affect how those wiper seals seal or don't seal. And it can even cause a wiper seal to get torn up from being too close to the wall. This is actually glued to each other. This is correct. The two wiper seals are super glued. And here the on tape is intact. It's not been torn up. We've got caulking coming loose here. And on a Schwintek, this can be a particular problem because if water gets behind this seal and into the wall, the Schwintek motor is right in here and can suffer water damage if this caulking goes bad. So this definitely needs to be documented and resealed. Because of the micro cracks on the roof, it's important that inside the RV, we look for any signs of water damage or staining where those cracks are occurring. So we're going to come in here and look very carefully at the trim and the paneling. Now you can see this kind of rippling here. That's actually normal because over time, the plastic film will just shrink. This is not a sign of water damage. This is just age and poor quality materials. We're going to keep looking all along here to make sure that we don't see any signs of water damage that might have occurred from the cracks in the roof. This is just putty that they put. In fact, there was a long scratch here and they put a bunch of putty in it to make it look okay, but the putty is discolored, which is why it looks like a yellow streak. That's not water damage. So here's something a little bit concerning. This staining looks like it could be water drops. So we're going to test and make sure we don't have water damaged or rotten paneling in here. I think it's okay. Okay, again, all these ripples here are the vinyl just kind of getting pushed by the trim. I don't think this is water damage. The panel behind it is still hard. Again, poor quality materials and age. I think that any water damage that might have occurred is going to be so mild, it's not even needing to be repaired. I think that what this roof needs is just to be resealed because of the hail damage. Or this could be an insurance claim. Like insurance could pay for the whole roof to be replaced, but your job is not to determine that as an inspector. Your job is just to document there's hail damage.
If you're a professional RV inspector and you're looking to get more clients for your business, you should apply to be on my Rigor RV Inspection Network. Right now, it's free for you to join, and I'm constantly being contacted by people in states where I don't have inspectors. So if you're the only inspector right now in that state, then you're going to get 100% of the leads coming through my YouTube channel. To learn more about how to apply, go to rigorrvinspection.com. Click here if you want to see more tips about running an RV inspection business, or click here for more hands-on tutorials about inspecting RVs.